This message is for people who exist in a non-traditional lifestyle, and a lifestyle that would dishonor your ancestors. I don't think that all ancestors mean you well. So if you are to, after this video, continue on with an ancestor practice, that's wonderful. But also understand that not all spirits are good spirits. We're going to talk a little bit more about the ancestors. If you have not seen the ancestors overview video, I really strongly encourage you to watch that. And to anybody who might be watching this video, who has questions, who needs advice, who has something to add to this conversation, please join the discussion. Please type in the comments. In my last video about the ancestors, we talked about ancestor connection, even if you don't feel a connection with them, even if maybe you have had abusive ancestors or abusive family in the past, or you don't get along with them. I want to also introduce some alternate views or alternate ideas about the ancestors. I am very careful about sharing my own personal spiritual practice in this group because I don't want people following what I do. I don't want people that blindly just do whatever because I tell them to do that. I want people to think critically. And as always, I want to share information with you so that you can develop your own opinions and develop your own practices. I think that that's what religion is. Religion is a bunch of practices and people tell you what to do and you just do it. And I think that's silly. So I think that we should all use good judgment when taking in information and from new sources. So what I wanted to talk to you about today was about bad ancestors. When I do calling in, when I call in guides, when I call in ancestors for myself or for other people, I always specifically mention to call in the benevolent ancestors, the benevolent guides, because just because you have somebody who's an ancestor, somebody who came before you, it doesn't necessarily mean that they wish you well. And I think that that is a very important statement, that you could have people who do not wish you well who are on the other side. Just for example, if you were once Christian, or like me, you were Catholic, you're a part of a very deeply held religious belief system, and you have a lot of ancestors in your family line who are a part of Catholicism or part of a deeply held spiritual convictions, it's possible that they hold those convictions after they die. And it's possible that if you exist as a pagan or a witch, or you exist as anything other than that spiritual conviction, that they don't wish you well. Okay, so those things are possible. If you're gay, if you're queer, if you have an alternative lifestyle, it's very possible that your ancestors do not wish you well. I wanted to hold this conversation because one of my really dear friends, and somebody actually who's in this group, made a post the other day, and she said that she was very concerned that a lot of people in the pagan community are worried that they're doing the wrong type of thing. They're worried they're going to upset the ancestors. They're worried they're not bringing enough honor to the ancestors. They're worried about all of these things. And so what my friend was basically saying was that she doesn't care about the ancestors. She doesn't have any kind of ancestor practice. And now we're not bringing this conversation up in this group to hurt people, because I know that there are people with different spiritual paths than me. I know, for instance, people who do hoodoo and voodoo, they have very strong practices to the ancestors, very strong connections to the ancestors. In fact, that might be some of their source of power in magic and a ritual. This isn't for you if you practice hoodoo or voodoo. I'm not talking to you. I don't want to present this information as something that is offensive to you. Instead, I want people to, again, think critically, choose their own beliefs, so on and so forth. This is not meant to harm anybody, especially if you feel very deeply about the ancestors. I don't mean any disrespect to you or to your ancestors, to your spirits, to your guides. I think that some ancestors are parasites. I think that they are not ascended. I think that they're not crossed over. I don't know really what happens to us after death, but I do have this idea that some people don't make that final transition, that they stay somewhere in the spirit world. Norse pagans refer to these spirits as the hungry dead. So these are people who do not want their energy to be recycled. They do not want to move forward. They do not want to be reincarnated. They do not want to absorb essentially the lessons that they learned when they were alive. So instead of crossing on and being able to provide us good spiritual guidance, these people are hungry. They're hungry for our life force. So when you pass on, you no longer have a life force the way that you and I watching this video do. When you pass on, you're basically a disembodied spirit. And so I want to tell you to be very cautious of any and all spirit, ancestor, deity, guide, angel, who comes to you and needs something from you. Because if somebody needs something from you, your life force, your offerings, your worship, your prayer, your honor, they are not powerful enough to exist on their own the way that you and I are. So you and I, as living beings, have something that I like to call sovereignty. We are alive, we are creators, we are co-creators, and we are capable of absolute spiritual sovereignty, which is why I think that authenticity and spirituality is very important. Not just authenticity, but accountability, taking accountability for yourself, for your actions, and for your healing. I feel like spirits who have passed on, again, whether they be ancestors, guides, angel, deity, doesn't matter. They need to also take spiritual accountability for themselves. And if they can literally not exist without your worship and honor, that's something that we need to look at a little bit deeper. So are these people, deities, entities, literally leeching your life force to stay alive? Some people would say yes. Some people would argue with me and say that I am nuts. And I'm okay with that because, again, I want to present this information so that we can all have a conversation here. I also want to bring up my own personal experience with ancestors who did not wish me well. And you all know, most of you, that I very recently transitioned out of a normal, traditional mortgage house to living into an RV. So as I was making this transition, I knew that it was the best for me. I knew that this was the best option, the best path forward for my family. So we started, we moved forward. We did all this work. We renovated an RV. We got out of our house. We established our lives in a way that we needed to move forward. Right, seriously, 4 days before we finally made that final transition, moving into the RV, I had such an energetic attack, almost like people were screaming in my ears. And it was my ancestors, some of them, not all of them. Some ancestors were very angry with me that I was making this move, that I was making this transition. So I know this transition was good for me. My intuition tells me this is good. My divination tells me this is good. Me taking spiritual accountability for myself and my family. Everything in me says this is good. So why is it that some of these ancestors were so angry with me? The only other time when I experienced this type of oppression, if you will, is in about 2017. I had a crazy spiritual life-altering experience and I left organized religion and I was out of state at the time. I called my husband and I said to him, look, we're never going back to Catholic Church. And at that moment, I felt the same sense of oppression, like somebody screaming in my ears, like people trying to drag my energy down. And it was really a terrifying experience when I put those words out to my husband to say, I'm not doing this anymore. And so my idea or my theory is that I had some ancestors or spiritual ties or spiritual connections to people who do not like the way that I exist, who do not like the fact that I have a non-traditional lifestyle, who do not like the fact that I have a non-traditional spiritual practice, who do not like the fact that I exist the way that I exist. Not all spirits are good spirits. Some spirits do mean you well. Some spirits are not. Some spirits are parasitic. They leech onto your energy only to take away from your life force. That might sound like really super scary, but if I'm being honest, there's lots of things in our life that leech away our life force, right? So if you are habitual soda or coffee drinker, I'm sure that those bad habits can leech away from your life. If you're a smoker, if you consistently eat bad foods, if you hang around people who are you guys are a little wild for me, there are things that can leech your life source away. Any kind of bad habits do that. I'm not saying that if you have a connection to the ancestors and some of them are parasitic, that you're just going to totally lose your life. But what I am saying is that if spirits need you so that they can continue existing, it's time to take a second thought, a double take at that relationship and say, are these people harmonious? Are they ascended? Are they transcended? Are they passed on? Are they able to give me good guidance? Or are they trying to harm me? Are they trying to keep me in old habits? This very much goes in alignment with generational curses. A lot of people in the spiritual communities, especially newbies, are terrified of curses because there are a lot of predatory folks out there on the internet, a lot of predatory spiritual leaders, readers, intuitives, whatever you want to call yourself. There's a lot of people that are new to spirituality. They're very interested in getting readings and things like that. They'll go to healers, and they will say things like, okay, I'm going to get this reading or whatever. Reader pulls out some cards and says, you've got this horrible curse on your ancestry and on your bloodline. And if you pay me $2,000, I will get rid of this curse for you. So then you've got all these newbie magicians, pagans, whatever you want to call yourselves, who are freaking out because some reader, not in good spirits, as a way to use and manipulate somebody else, told them they have some blood curse or something like that. Hey, we all probably have a couple curses. Maybe some we put on ourselves, maybe some that are well-meaning caregivers or people who are in part of systems of oppression have put on us. We might even have blood or ancestral curses, generational curses, things that other people have put on our ancestors that they have passed down onto us. And so when you look at things like, alcoholism, violence, long-term health issues that run in the family, these are all generational curses in my mind. People who have money trouble, that's a generational curse. That's a generational curse. You are not meant to struggle. You're not meant to be unhealthy. You are not meant to have your energy pouring out of you. These are curses, okay? And so if your ancestors are indeed parasitic, or some of them are parasitic, some of them are bad, some of them were horrible people, some of them were colonists, some of them were colonizers, some of them were slave owners, some of them perpetrated violence against other people, perhaps other people in your ancestry. These are not good people. These are not people who are going to want to clap for you and see you succeed. So why should we be giving honor or connection to ancestors who do not wish us well, who are trying to continue to perpetrate generational curses, probably ones that they put on themselves? We should not be doing this. We should not be doing this. So now is the time to take spiritual accountability for yourself, for your connections, for your ancestor practice. I do still feel like it is important to recognize where you came from, even if the people that you come from are violent. I think it's important to recognize that. And like we talk about with everything else, we talk about this with mindset, we talk about this with body positivity, we talk about this in a lot of areas of life. But if you cannot be positive about your connection to your ancestors and who you came from, you should at least come to a point where you are neutral about them. Because I believe, and maybe I'm wild and you don't have to take this belief, but I believe that if we hold a negative feeling or emotion or energy towards ancestors or towards anybody, really, we're really holding that feeling towards ourselves. Because more than likely, people who don't like you, whether that's ancestors or people who are alive today, if people, you don't like those people and you're sending that energy towards them, most of the time it doesn't affect them. It simply affects you. So I do think that it is good to at least come to a neutral point with the ancestors. And you guys, listen to me here. You can take up this work, if you want to, of healing generational curses by clearing your ancestors. You may clear them. You may ferry them across the river of the dead and have their souls repurposed and recycled so that they may come back into incarnation, so that they are no longer a part of the hungry dead. I have shared a couple of posts in this group by a woman named Christina Marvel. I will also link her down below in the description. She has a lot to say about the ancestors and about ancestral clearing practices. And so this is something that we can do. If you do feel like you have parasitic attachments, whether that be ancestors, whether that be deities, maybe deities that you worshiped in the past, or deities that are just, around you, whether you believe that's land spirits, whether you believe it's something else, any kind of parasitic attachment that is leeching your life force, that is cursing you, you have the power and the cosmic sovereignty to be able to get rid of that. And you don't need to pay some healer or some reader or somebody to do it for you. You are capable of clearing and cleansing your family line. You are capable of clearing and cleansing your own line and your own energy. And so that's what I wanted to say today. I wanted to bring this up. If you don't have a connection to the ancestors, because maybe you've spent time and you've cleared them all away. You've sent them to their judgment. You've sent them to whatever comes next after we die. So you don't have that connection with them. I can't blame you. Maybe that was good for you. And my friend who posted that status the other day about everybody, being very concerned about upsetting the ancestors, and then her in turn saying she doesn't have an ancestor practice. I have an ancestor practice. I cannot in good faith look my friends in the eyes and tell her she is wrong. I can't tell her she's wrong for her convictions. She is right. She has exercised her power of intuition, her powers of divination, her powers of cosmic sovereignty to arrive at that decision for her, that she does not want to have an ancestor practice. She doesn't feel any kind of connection to them. She is focusing on worshiping and honoring herself. And I think that is so beautiful. That is so beautiful. So this is kind of like devil's advocate video, just a way to open up and expand your thoughts, your ideas about the ancestors, and to make a very clear designation, understanding that not everybody who is in spirit is good for you. Not everybody who is in spirit is meant for you. I hope that's helpful, you guys. Leave me your comments. I'd love to get back to you. And thanks so much for watching. See you guys later.